I want to bring in our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel, who is at the border of Israel and Gaza. Richard, what specifically are you seeing right now? And is it fair to say that Israel has begun its ground invasion without officially announcing it?
I think that's an excellent way of characterizing it. A ground invasion is underway. We've been watching Israeli tanks and troops moving into Gaza, advancing across some of the open areas between Israel and Gaza, firing with armored vehicles, troops engaging with their rifles. So a ground invasion is underway. It is not the blitzkrieg that some people had expected. It is not a division-level assault with hundreds or even thousands of armored vehicles and troops going in all at once. Instead, we're seeing smaller tactical moves with troops, tanks, bulldozers, engineering units going in primarily in two locations, here in the north, in the northern edge of the Gaza Strip, and further south in the midpoint of the Gaza Strip, both to the north and south of the biggest population center, which is Gaza City. So I think it's important to understand this more as the start of a rolling campaign that could intensify in the coming days, could intensify in the coming months. The Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu just gave a speech. His military commanders also gave a briefing, and they are describing this as phase 2. That the first phase was an air campaign that we saw ourselves intensify over the last couple of days, and now we're seeing what appears to be the start of a potentially very long ground phase of this operation. This is not what we'd seen before, where troops went in, stayed for a few hours, and pulled out. Those were probing attacks. These troops are going in, and it seems like they are there to stay and fight.
And, Richard, I know you can't see into Gaza right now. You are there on the border, though. Talk a little bit about what the conditions might be like inside of Gaza. Obviously, there had been an attempt to get humanitarian aid in. Undoubtedly, you would have to think that this intensifying ground operation will make that more difficult.
Well, part of Israel's tactic has been an ancient tactic in warfare, which is siege. They're trying to cut off Hamas's supplies. That unfortunately also means cutting off the supplies to the 2.3 million people of Gaza. But there has been a very deliberate campaign by Israel not to allow fuel in. Hamas's biggest strength in this campaign is its tunnels and the fact that there are 2.3 million people living above those tunnels. And it has been incredibly difficult for those people. They have been suffering already because of the airstrikes, and now as it goes into this ground campaign, they will be coming even closer into contact with Israeli troops, not just firing from the air, but firing with cannons and rifles. So we are definitely into a new phase of this war, and how long it takes, well, if you listen to the Israeli Prime Minister a short while ago, he described it as the second war of independence, another war that Israel fought for its very existence.
Yeah, I noted that as well. Incredibly powerful when he said that. Richard, I want to ask you about the hostages. We also heard the Prime Minister say that he has met with the families of the hostages. Jay Gray was talking about this as well. The concern being for those families that this ground invasion will make it almost impossible to get more hostages out. We know that 4 hostages have been released so far. What is your sense? What is your reporting around those efforts to try to get the hostages out, Richard?
So the military spokesman for Hamas also spoke a short while ago, and he said that there had been attempts to free the hostages, and we'd reported on those extensively in the last several weeks. He said that Israel did not take those attempts seriously, but he said that the offer still stands, that they want to release the hostages in exchange for all Palestinian prisoners. He said that could happen all at once. It could happen in stages. So according to Hamas, they are still open to negotiations. I've spoken to mediators as well, who say that despite what is happening here, the discussions, indirect discussions, are still ongoing. So that is one portfolio, one dynamic of this that is extraordinarily difficult. And the reason that Prime Minister Netanyahu is speaking to those families is those families are increasingly concerned about their loved ones who are inside Gaza for obvious and perfectly understandable reasons. And they are increasingly frustrated because they are watching what's happening here. They are watching this escalation. They are watching phase 2 of this war begin. And they are telling the Israeli government and the world, don't forget about our sons, daughters, children, grandparents who are held hostage in Gaza.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.